Hello, everybody. I want to thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of my podcast. For those of you who have been with me since the beginning of my journey from day one, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And for those who are new to the podcast, who this may be their first episode, their first time tuning in, thank you. And I hope you come back for more. I'm just here to inspire and I'm here to learn as much as I'm here to teach because we're always learning. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. If, again, referring to those of you who have been with me since the beginning, I used to create podcasts kind of 15 minutes, 10 minutes in length, where they were just like quick conversations or quick like motivational statements or just stories or inspirations that I had throughout my day. And today I kind of sort of wanted to get back to that, get back to the root of my podcast. And I just wanted to put something out there that's, not the typical 20 or 30 minutes in length, just something that's kind of conversational, kind of just talking about how my day went, what I've been going through, what I've been experiencing, and stuff of the sort. As you all know, I just passed my 100 podcast mark. It was a very big milestone for me because I was listening to a podcaster. I can't remember who it was in specific, but they were saying the reason why a lot of podcasts don't make it is because they don't stick to their podcast. They don't push through the negativity and the walls that they face, and that most podcasters don't make it to their 100th podcast. So early on, when I created my podcast and when I was starting to create my podcast, that 100 podcast milestone was a very big milestone for me. And in reaching and now surpassing that milestone, with this being my 101 podcast episode, I'm really enthusiastic. I'm really excited that I was able to, beat the odds, beat the difficulties, and add just one more notch on my belt of successes that I've had in my life, and just another cookie I could pull out of the cookie jar when I'm going through bad times, just to remind myself of who I am and what I've done. Because sometimes we have to be our own cheerleaders and we have to remind ourselves that the world may tell us that we're not great or that we haven't accomplished anything, but in order to get to where you are in life, present day, you had to have accomplished something. No matter how small it may seem on the grand scale of things or on the world stage, in your world, in your universe, it was something grand. Today was a good day. I can't really complain. It wasn't a bad day. It was a really great day, a great experience. I got to spend the whole day with my family, basically, which is what I love to do. I love to spend time with my family. That's probably my most favorite activity to participate in. But in spending the whole day with my family, there was a lot of time where I just took in the day and, just really saw a lot of what I've been talking about in my podcast throughout my day. First and foremost, starting off my day with my morning routine. I woke up at 5 o'clock, got up, felt like I didn't want to go to the gym, and then I pushed through it. I remembered my commitment to myself. I fought through the sleepiness and being lazy, and I went to the gym. Had a great lifting session. It was leg day, so I know in about 2 days' time I'm gonna be walking kind of funny because leg day is always a pain. It is always a pain. And then after I got done with leg day, I came back home and started doing the second half of my morning routine. I started writing down in my journal, what I'm grateful for. And then I started doing something new in my journal where I started making these affirmations, basically these I am statements, like I am this, I am that. And they're the the standard that I'm setting for my day. These are the beliefs that I'm pushing forward into my mind throughout the day so that when my energy gets off and when I get kind of sidetracked by whatever may come my way, I can always remember that I made these mental commitments to myself. And I repeat them over and over again throughout my day and remind myself of who I am, what my purpose is, and what I'm going to allow to take place in my life. So I did that, hung out with my family, then we started our day. Um, the missus wanted to get a lot of stuff done today, so the day was largely not controlled by me. It was controlled by her, but that's okay. I had a blast. We got to enjoy some time with just me and her. Dropped the kids off at grandma's house, and we got a lot of what we wanted to do done. In saying that, I know that in my previous episode, I believe in episode 100 even, I talked about how creating this podcast has really made me go back and look over my life and look at how the things that I talk about don't come from a place of instruction, but they come from a place of experience. The reason I can talk on these things that I discuss in our podcast is because I have been there. I've experienced the dark times. I've experienced the times of being on top of the mountain as well. And I just feel that the lessons that I've learned in my life are something that I could pass on to somebody else. And maybe you'll be able to resonate with it, maybe not, but it's worth the effort because I believe that each and every one of us has a lesson that we could teach that somebody could benefit from. It may be in sports, it may be in music, it may be in art, it may be in philosophy, it may be in math, or it may be in life in general. We have something that we can teach somebody. We have something that we can contribute to this world in a meaningful way before we pass. And a lot of that can come from bad experiences. A lot of that comes from good experiences, but either way it comes, it's part of the journey. And today was just another reminder of the things that I discuss and that I talk about on the podcast, like living intentionally, focusing my energy in the right direction, being careful about the people I surround myself around and who I seek advice from, being present and enjoying the moment, not letting my thoughts, run away, being in control of my thoughts, controlling my self-talk, being in control of my attitude, all of those things that we talk about that I say, everything is everything. They're interconnected. It's not, separate little things that happen and, if I control this over here, then, that's one part and this is another part. It's just one big spider web. And controlling this over here, like your emotions, you then affect this over here, which is your decisions. And at the time, they may not seem connected, like early on in life, maybe early on in your childhood development. But as you grow older, you start to see the correlation between your emotions and the decisions you make. Another thing that I was able to reflect on today was my word choice. I was very intentional about the words that I was deciding to use and to not to use. And that definitely had a different effect on the outcome of certain situations I was in today. So today was an overall good day because I was present first and foremost. I wasn't worried about the past and I wasn't worried about what was going to happen in the future. I was just worried about being present in that moment. And secondly, it was a good day because I got to notice what was happening, in that moment in time outside of myself, like the different lessons that could have been learned and the beauty in life itself and in those lessons, because we have to have the bad times in order to have the good times. But when you're in the midst of those good times, you go reflect on those bad times and see how far you've come and see how different life is on this opposite end of the spectrum, because that's what we do on a daily basis. We just think of your life, your energy management as one big spectrum. It's contained in a big spectrum. And just as you go throughout your day or you go throughout different experiences, you kind of just slide along that spectrum back and forth all day. And what we want to do ideally is control how much we slide or how much we move along that spectrum. We want to be as controlled as possible on that spectrum. Whichever way we move, we want to move in a intentional manner. Like not sliding to the extremes of the spectrum, but maybe a little bit this way and a little bit that way. And aviation, you knew I was going to go to aviation because I always tie it back to flying. That's my first love, my passion. But in aviation, we call it coordinated flight, and we call maneuvers that we conduct in this fashion controlled. So controlled climbs, controlled descents, coordinated turns. And when we do these maneuvers, they're very intentional. They're carried out a certain way. When I climb my airplane, the power is set a certain way. I'm climbing at a certain feet per minute, to achieve a certain altitude. And even in trying to achieve that altitude, my goal is to hit that altitude and not pass it. So then there's a strategic way to do that. There's controlled descents where I'm descending at a certain, my power is set first and foremost to a certain RPM. I'm descending at a certain number of feet per minute. And my goal is to hit the altitude again without going through it or without passing it. That's a controlled descent, and I'm doing it very intentionally. And then what we call coordinated flight is, instead of like when you see planes, they turn together. Everything's in unison. The tail follows the track of the plane. It's not up here and it's not down here. It follows the plane. And when we conduct a turn in that manner, very intentionally, it's coordinated, and it's a very intentional maneuver. It's not something you don't just hop in a plane. Well, the best pilots, good pilots, don't just hop in a plane and let the plane dictate where you go or how you fly or how you move. You dictate every action that plane takes. It's very intentional. It's very purposeful. If you're going to set the engine to a certain RPM, you have a certain result already in mind that you want to achieve, whether that's a certain speed or a rate of climb or descent or the ability to hold a maneuver. It's very intentional living. And that has been a very big focus for me here recently, especially with going back over what I've learned through this podcast. Is my goal is to live as intentionally as possible, meaning that as soon as I wake up and my feet hit the ground, I'm moving with intention. I'm on not autopilot, but I have an intention. I don't know what other word to use for that, but just a strong pull or motivation towards living my life in a certain manner or a certain fashion. So as soon as I wake up, bam, it's time to go to the gym. My clothes are already set out. My book bag's already by the door with my earphones and my running shoes. The keys are already by the door too. There's minimal planning and minimum effort to get ready to go to the gym. It just happens. And then boom, I go to the gym. That happens. I come home. I know the next thing I need to do is the rest of my morning routine. I got that already set out on the table. So I crack out my journal. I do that. I read my books. I do that. I say my affirmations. I do my list of what I'm grateful for and the things that I want in my life, and bam, I'm on to the next thing. And then I start my day, whatever that entails. I'm trying to live as purposefully as possible because, again, looking over my life, when I was able to achieve the results that I desired for my life at that point in time, it was through living intentionally. When I was, in the pursuit to get my pilot's license, every aspect of my life revolved around flight, revolved around aviation. I was reading aviation books. I was playing Flight Simulator X, which sounds, kind of out of the way, like it really wasn't doing anything, but it was muscle memory. It was helping me to go over the maneuvers and the checklists and everything in my head. So it was giving me that practice, that familiarization, even though I was outside the cockpit and I wasn't actually in it. I was surrounding myself with people who were about that flight life and who had the same goals as me. So it's all about, just taking a step back, detaching from your current situation in the moment that you're stuck in right now, and seeing how far you've come, and the person that you've changed and the person that you've become, like how your character has changed, how you stuck to your morals and stuck to your ethics, and that contributed to you being this great person. Even if you don't have to be great in the eyes of the world, you just have to be great in your own eyes. Like, because nobody knows your story. That's another lesson that I've had to face myself, is that nobody knows your story, and you don't have to validate yourself to nobody. You know who you are. You know what you've done. You know what you've been through. It doesn't matter if the world doesn't pick you or the world doesn't accept you. You are who you are. You are unique. You are not meant to follow everybody else. You are meant to break the mold. You are meant to contribute a unique perspective to this world other than what is already here. Or even if it's already here, you were meant to put a unique spin, a unique drive or perspective on that thing that's already here. You were meant to build on the foundation that others have laid for you, to stand on the shoulders of giants. Like, we were all created for a purpose. And it wasn't just to work 8 hours, come home and go to sleep. You have a utility built in you. You have a purpose. And we need to live intentionally for that purpose, for that goal, for that thing, that one thing that we're trying to obtain, that one thing that we can keep our eye on in bad situations, and that'll get us through those dark nights, or those foggy, unsure times. And it just flex, man. Detach, like Jocko Willink says, detach sometimes, and just take yourself out of the situation. Just look at everything, in bits and pieces. Not as a whole, but in bits and pieces, and see how far you've come, how great you've become, what you've built, what you've created, what you've destroyed. Sometimes you got to destroy some things in your life to get ahead. And that's a part of the problem, or that's a part of the process, not a part of the problem. It's a part of the problem, in the sense that it may be a wall that you may face, that you may have to destroy in order to get to where you need to go. But it's the part of the process, ultimately, that tearing down and building up. And you'll see a lot of that in trainings or schools you'll go to, like in the military or other semi-militaristic programs built in a similar fashion. And the reason that so many different organizations follow that type of structure is because it works. It works. It creates successful individuals who are driven through purpose. And that's all I'm saying. Realize your purpose. You are great. Step back and realize that you were put on this earth for a reason, and that every moment has a purpose. And if we detach ourselves from the drudgery of life, and just getting stuck down in the mud and wearing yourself down and being your own worst enemy, we'll be able to realize, how far we've come and how great we are. And that's a great feeling, man. Like, today has been a great day, and I really can't put it on any one thing. It's just the whole day was great, down to like right now, where I'm creating this podcast, where I'm sharing content with the world, and hopefully you'll be able to benefit from this, and it'll excite you and put you in a different mood or a different state of mind, other than what you typically are. So I hope you have a good night. I know it's a little bit late. I had technical difficulties with my computers this morning and my microphone, so I'm trying to work through that. As you saw, if you're watching on my YouTube, my video just went black for a second. I'm trying to figure it out, and even though these problems exist, I will still persist. So it's all good. We're gonna knock this out and keep on pushing. Keep tuning in. We're gonna have interviews and guest speakers on here shortly. That's also something I'm trying to figure out, so bear with me. But I almost got it. Zero in my sights, and we're gonna knock this out together. Again, thank you for tuning in.